And I'm really excited to be joined by Diane Krikora. Say hi, Diane.
Hi, Diane.
And Diane, I'm excited not just because you have a effervescent and outgoing and fun personality, which is nice as well too. So folks, I think this will be engaging. And Diane and I may not even agree on everything. We'll see how that goes. But I think it'll be interesting, and we both have strong opinions. But one of the things that I'm really pleased about Diane being able to join us is she's got so much experience working directly with the vendors and how the vendors are working with their partners. And in particular, Diane, you can talk a little bit about this. You've been doing a lot of work lately around the digital marketing side of the space and how vendors are trying to work well with their partners today on that.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot around how do you engage partners in more demand generation and kind of the new world of digital marketing and the buyer journey. And a lot of that, of course, also ties into kind of the specifics that we're going to talk about today as MDF or the kind of co-marketing programs. And we've done a lot of benchmarks from our customers as well on kind of what they're doing around MDF. So I'm excited to be on the call with you soon, and of course you're always going to be right if we disagree.
I don't believe that for a moment, folks. So we'll see how it turns out. So anyways, thank you guys for joining us. So the agenda today, we're going to talk about some key trends. There are a few things that Diane and I have been talking about. We've been talking about a lot for the past couple of years, and in particular the digital marketing pieces. It's really become such a key element to everything. And then we're going to go through optimizing the 8 key elements to an MDF program. And one of the reasons I invited Diane on this is her perspective on digital marketing and what she's been doing, because the 8 key elements, we've been doing 8 key elements for several years. And if you're going to build an MDF program, we still very much believe that those 8 key elements are really important. The question we have is, what is the lens you're viewing that through? So today we're going to spend a little bit of time digging into those elements, looking at the best practices, looking at the trends, and a lot of times we're going to be looking through that digital marketing lens. So a couple of the key trends that are out there, and I think most people are aware of these. Sometimes it's good to hear. In particular, Diane, I keep hearing in my meetings with clients and with prospects that they're working to create the year of the partner, and it's all about partner experience. Literally in our demos, from the landing page to quick links to dashboards to everything we're doing, I keep hearing it's about the year of the partner. However, the data that we're seeing that's coming back from partners is there's still an awful lot of frustrations out there. Are you hearing the same thing?
Yeah, and we agree. It's kind of the year of the partner experience. In our 2017 State of Partnering study, which is our 11th year of doing this, is all around the partner experience. It's even right off the bat, we already agree.
Okay.
that it is all about the partner's experience and how do you give them a very rich experience, because that experience leads to engagement, and engagement leads to more sales. Right? So we would absolutely agree with that, and there is still a lot of frustration on the partner side from at least the data that we gathered in the State of Partnering.
Okay, see, this is where, because I was going to disagree with you. I was going to say, look, I think people are saying it. I don't think they're doing it. I think people are moving in that direction. But when I look at this list, too much red tape. Okay, I guess I'll buy that one a little bit. Slow reimbursement. I see it all the time. We're going to talk about that later on industry best practices of getting a check to a partner in less than 21 days and how organizations are going around that. Poor timing. We still have organizations that maybe aren't supporting the people we work with, and they're putting everybody in a bind and rolling out dollars at the last minute and expecting partners to have great plans. Constant changes. I talk to people all the time who push and pull on their guidelines, and they redo them 3 or 4 times, and they wonder why our partner's confused. And then painful audits. Yeah, we can go through that as well. We have one client who has 28 additional questions that they ask a partner on a PA form. It takes a partner 45 minutes to go through a single PA form. So So while I absolutely agree that everyone is talking about, and I'm going to talk about the last one in a second, I absolutely agree that people have the intention of moving towards a more partner-friendly experience. I think there's a lot of checkboxes people still need to look at. Some of them may be outside of control, but they still affect the partner. Okay. And
yeah, I certainly agree that they're not there yet, but we're going to help them right now.
Okay, all right. All right, lack of digital marketing skills. This one, gosh, I'm not even sure. We were talking about these top 5 here, these other 5. We've been talking about them forever, right? I think every conversation, ever since you and I have met, or I've been doing this, or you've been doing this, these are pretty much the standards that the partners go through. The digital marketing chasm that's out there, and the partner's inability to market, and the vendor's realization of this, is something that's just in every single conversation. But I think one of the things sometimes that gets lost is the partners get really frustrated about this. Just because they're horrible marketers doesn't mean they want to be horrible marketers, right? And I think as we go through this, we'll talk about where that plays into a lot of our key elements. Okay. And Diane, I think this is where we absolutely agree as well, in that why are the partners having so many of these challenges, and why the vendors are having so many of these challenges with getting the partners to come on board, to bend to use their will to bend technology to their benefit. They're not very good at it. And what's changed is the buyer's journey, right? And the fact that we've got some other slides later on that show that even in traditional products, the buyer is generally 50% through their journey by the time they reach a partner. And if it's a cloud product, what is it, Diane? It's more like 80%?
That's what we hear, yeah, 70 to 80%.
Yeah, so by the way, guys, check this out. If you haven't seen this, I'm sure most, or if not everyone has, Google calls it a 0 moment of truth. It's pretty interesting, YouTube videos that are out there that can walk you through this. But we used to, it's funny, MDF, we talked about MDF, and then it went to conversations about integrations that we had. Now we're having conversations every time when we're talking about MDF and integrations, we're talking about digital marketing in every single conversation and a buyer's journey. And Diana, that's just been a massive shift for us as it's become part of what seems like every conversation.
Yeah, and particularly around as we move to cloud, right? The partner's value is more on that early stages, so the buyer's journey is really important.
Yeah,
oh, look at there it is.
Hey, look at there. There's a slide. 57% traditional, 80% cloud. Diane and I were talking the other day, and one of the things we found really interesting on this, and I'll let her talk a little bit about it, is when you're going through that line, it used to be kind of a straight line, right, through the process, but it doesn't look like much of a straight line anymore.
Yeah, especially as as we've been talking a lot about cloud, it's no longer a straight funnel, right, where the customer starts at the top in terms of marketing and then goes into the awareness and interest and decision and action kind of simple funnel. They jump all over the place and may go out and ask some analysts around some information early on in the sales cycle, or get some reviews or approval quotes from your customers even before you're really giving them references. So it's not a straight funnel anymore. It's certainly got a lot more kind of complexity to it, specifically when you get to digital, right? In terms of you can reach anybody on Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go through these elements, and we'll talk about how those elements work today. And some of them, the digital marketing side of things, affect more than others, and we'll have a brief conversation about all of them. So we're going to talk about the program eligibility, the periods, how funds are earned, products promoted, eligible activities, reimbursement percentage, marketing execution, and payments. So the first one, program eligibility, and this is a great place to start. And Diane, I know you and I have conversations about this on a regular basis as well, in terms of who are the right partners that you want to pick, right? And it's never been more important to pick the right partners because you got one shot at it, right? And so how do you do that? Diane, talk to us a little about some of the things that you see on, how do we make sure that we have those right partners?
Well, first I think it's around the goal, right? It's just for your growth partners or your stars or your bench, right? In terms of who are you looking to engage more? Who are you looking to motivate with kind of an MDF program? And then really being able, once you set the goal, you can go through and define and profile who in your partner ecosystem really fits into that kind of group that you want to be able to engage in this type of program.
Yeah, you know, we both share a common client that I think does a really good job of this, and they go through, and in their scorecarding and the way that they KPI, gone are the days where, you know, it was POS and certifications, and they're really triaging these partners into groups based on their business capabilities, right? And really digging into their marketing capabilities. I know you and I had this conversation about a while back when I was a partner, and we claimed to be experts in the wine vertical. And that's one of the things that people are looking for. Okay, where's your competency? What sort of verticals can you work well in? What sort of skill sets? And we sold ourselves as having an expertise in wine vertical. We had a couple wine clients. Well, the truth of the matter was we loved wine, okay? That was our vertical expertise, right? So look, there's a checkbox for the passion, but if anybody had dug a little bit deeper, look, we were just going after what do we like to do, who do we want to talk to, who do you think we can service well? And over time, we actually figured out, okay, what are the trends in this vertical that you really need to be able to be paying attention to, right? How do they run their businesses? How do they run their marketing? How do they run their sales? And how can we support, technically, how can we support these guys? So, you know, I think it's very interesting that not only do you have to look broader in what you're trying to find out from these partners, but in many cases you have to dig a little bit deeper too. So yes, here's a trend, right? You need to be able to look at these partners having those capabilities, being able to demonstrate it. We're going to see later on a slide where one of our clients that we both work with really divides their partners into an A, B, and a C category. And in that A category, they understand that this is what they're going to need to be able to do to help that partner from a digital marketing capability. And maybe they're self-sufficient. In the B category, they're a little bit they're not quite as good and self-sufficient, so there's a little bit more prescriptive. And then they have a C category, which is full of a lot of people, where it's completely prescriptive. And what they've done is created a pretty neat secret sauce to be able to very quickly figure out, you know, what do I have, and build these paths for the different groups, right? And then I guess one other trend that I'm hearing, Diane, on several ends is as you're going through this vetting and as you're looking at these partners and you're finding out which partners are eligible, bringing sales into the loop earlier and more often, and even as you're going through the development of the programs, the marketing programs that you want for these partners.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that there is that much tighter relationship between marketing and sales in the new version of a funnel. Right? It used to be marketing was the very top of the funnel, and then sales had 3/4 of it, and now marketing really owns 3/4 of the funnel and sales on the bottom, right? Since you talked about 80% of the decisions already made, but you know, so that the sales team needs to know a lot more about what has been going on with that customer or that prospect. In terms of, you know, what digital signature have they been engaged in? Are they on your Twitter? Or are they responding to your kind of active, so that the sales guys have more of a knowledge there.
Yeah, and I think it's really key. And there's some old habits in there that people have to break. And the salespeople are becoming more marketers as well. And then the marketing people allowing the salespeople to come in and have input into this and be a part of the process. So I see this as a very positive move in the right direction. Okay, the program periods. Program periods are kind of interesting too, and especially as we move to the digital marketing that the partners are doing and cloud products. The seasonality, historically, it was pretty simple. Most folks ran it on quarters, and then they look at seasonality, and they tried to match it up. And those things made a lot of sense. But I think one of the things that's changing with the digital landscape today, and we go right to the trends here, is the need to look past that quarter. when you brought it up just a minute ago, when so much of the marketing efforts from the partners are going to be at the top of the funnel, it's a long process that they're driving, using those marketing dollars and using those market activities to drive success. Now, hopefully, the sale at the end is actually fairly rapid because you basically been dating for 9 months, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's just a big shift for the partners to understand, as well as the vendors to understand, right? And it's going to take longer in what used to be considered the first stage, which is now probably the first 3 stages of your overall sales funnel, because the end customer is doing so much of that themselves and kind of self-navigating through the information that they need and want to be able to make an evaluation. So we're looking at 6 months, 9 months of kind of overall campaigns, really move from an activity that the partners are doing, a breakfast, an executive breakfast, to a longer campaign that may run several months to then get some very high SQLs.
Yeah, no, I completely...
Sales qualified leads, sorry.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, and it takes patience on both sides, and there's so many pieces that play in here. We'll talk about the metrics later too, because a lot of the digital marketing, it's very difficult to. We're just getting a handle on the measurements on those, right? So it definitely takes effort on both sides. All right, how the funds are earned. So we've seen some changes here as well, and maybe a little bit driven by the digital marketing side, but I think in general it's been driven so much by the need for growth and the need for measurement. And we'll go into some of the best practices here. The traditional side of things is an MDF, market development fund, and it's proposal based, and co-op, which is accrual based. And is used for your traditional marketing activities, and it's basically their dollars that they earn, right? We're seeing, one, nobody uses the word co-op anymore anyways, and even if they're doing an accrual-based program, they're calling it an MDF program. I think, Diane, I think people just don't want to say the word co-op. I don't know about you. Yeah, well, I think it has such a negative connotation in some ways, right? I think people think of it as an entitlement.
Yeah, and I wish they would, stop doing co-op at all, but that's a whole other topic, and we can talk another 45 minutes on the fact that we wish they'd stop doing co-op at all and have it all initiative-based. But if it's going to be that accrual-based, we need to call it co-op because it gets very confusing when everybody just calls it MDF altogether, when it's really not. It is a percentage that these partners kind of earn and goes into their own bank account.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is, and so you understanding the market, and a lot of people understand the market, and maybe even some of the partners get that, and you can have those conversations, and you can say, hey, let's get rid of co-op, let's move to MDF, because it is greater flexibility. It's for growth. It's for business development. It's for enablement. It's doing all the right things. When I was a partner, we were all about, okay, let's build our top line. How do we grow our business? Every single dollar we spent, everything was how do we grow our business? Not so much the lifestyle or bottom line. It was top line. So MDF makes total sense. The reality is our clients are dealing with lifestyle partners as well as growth partners. And I know you've got a great quadrant somewhere in your files that shows where these partners sit, right? And how you manage each one differently. The challenge is the partner community for folks is still made up of both sides, right? Which makes it kind of hard. Still.
Right, and then,
go ahead.
I was going to say, when you move to the trends, you'll see some of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Almost, okay, every single client that we work with has an MDF program. Almost everyone has a true MDF, market development fund, and it's proposal based. We still have a lot that do co-op. The interesting thing for us has been over the past couple of years to see people move more to the proposal based and discretionary. Some people have done it really well, and some people have had challenges. We had one client who moved from proposal based, moved from 100% co-op to 100% proposal based, and they did it very, very, very quickly. They didn't KPI their partners. They didn't really understand what they had out there. and they didn't communicate. They forgot about two-partner marketing to a great degree. And they'll admit all this, right? And we've made a lot of corrections. But for the first year, they went from 95% utilization, which makes sense. It is the partner's money in co-op, to 35% utilization in MDF. And we had to go back and work together on the guidelines and the two-partner communications and the value of what they were doing, and understand how those partners did their business, right? And how the marketing worked for them. So some folks, that's been a real challenge. We also had a client who used to be 95 co-op, 5% MDF, and did it a little differently. They went to 60% MDF. That was the goal. And listening to their partners and a lot of pushback they got and a lot of conversations, they ended up the first year settling on 50-50. And they talked to the partners and they worked with the partners and they found a middle ground. And their goal still is, I think, probably, Diane, if they had their way, they would do exactly what you're talking about. But they did it in a little bit more systematic way, and made sure that the communications and the build-out rolled a little bit more smoothly. I mean, there's a carrot and a stick, right?
Yeah, there is a carrot and a stick, and we prefer the carrot, but.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. And and as I said, the spoiler alert up here is don't forget to talk to your partners as you go through this. The more you can engage, and the more that you can find to help you as you move other partners through that transition, I think the more successful you can be. But there's no question that folks are moving in this direction. Okay, the products are going to be promoted. This used to be fairly simple. And, well, okay, it used to be really simple, and then it got a little bit more complicated. And some of the things that we've seen lately on the product side is bundling, right? So I'll take a step back. Partners are going to follow the dollars, right? So I don't think this has really changed. You can weight this accordingly in some of the traditional ways of looking at what products you want to move and what products you want to market. I think that's still fairly straightforward. The changes we've seen, Diane, are in bundling. And bundling both from the several vendors working together with a partner. And I know you've seen a bunch of that, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that, and then I can talk about some of the bundling that we've seen inside of a plan for a single vendor.
Yeah, and I think this point will be a surprise to some of the people on the call, that you don't have to have all of your products eligible for MDF or co-op if you're still going to do an accrual, right? It doesn't have to be like all of them. You can focus your MDF or your, let's just call it co-marketing, on specific products that you want to gain traction. Maybe it's their cloud products and you want to give them more incentives to go drive a market and create that demand for your cloud products. So I think that for some people that's just going to be a what? I don't have to have it across my product line. No, you can be specific on this. And then particularly on this idea of bundle, we've seen it being very creative around an external bundle. I'm just going to use, like, for example, Cisco and SAP HANA, right? That they are able to create additional marketing funds available for partners that put those two solutions together, those two products together in a solution, and market it as a full solution to their customers and to their prospects, rather than kind of dollars from one Cisco and also dollars from SAP, but being able to really say we are better together. And that's a really cool best practice or trend, kind of, that I almost jumped the gun on your next slide, of the trends that we see coming through.
Yeah, and so I completely agree with you, and we're even seeing the bundling for an individual vendor across their product lines. And you're right, you don't have to use everything, but one of the more popular drop downs that we can configure simply in our forms is the percentage that you want to allocate against products, and how many products you would like to put together in a campaign if it's in a joint marketing planner, or against a single objective if it's on a single PA. So yeah, we're actually seeing it on both sides. The trend piece, okay, and this is, you brought up the cloud earlier, and look, hey, these guys need help, right? While I think it makes total sense that, as you brought up, we want to drive those cloud products perhaps. I think one of the other reasons to look at that is the partners world is shifting so much. And if you're asking them to sell and market cloud products, not only do they need help, which evidenced by everything that we've talked about from a digital marketing perspective, but their cash flow, just look, I mean, you guys all know this, right? Look at the basics of what they're going through. They're going through a transition from a time when they used to get us a big chunk of cash for doing a project, and now they're getting an annuity over the next 2 years. So their cash flow is strapped just based on the product, and now they need to go do marketing as well, and they probably already were limited from marketing perspective. So there's a lot of pieces I think that tie into that, and one of them is, hey, let's make these cloud products eligible for these funds.
Yeah, there are 3 things here for us, right? That they're not great marketers. Cloud's hard to understand just in terms of where they play and what the solution is anyway, and they're cash flow constrained, right? So that's, that's a triple whammy for these poor partners. And many of the vendors that we look for really want the partners to help grow there. So it can be, I think we see it as one of the biggest challenges to overcome. It's like, well, we want the partners to grow in cloud, but those are the 3 big whammies for them.
Yeah, and you put them all together, and they're all, the partners are experiencing, and the vendors, everybody. Oh, look, we're all together experiencing all of this at the same time. So definitely a new world for these guys, for everybody. Okay, and this sort of rolls into, I think, very nicely, what are the eligible activities that are out there as well, and what do we want the partners to do? And in the days of being able to get away with tchotchkes and things that really didn't have a lot of value are fading fast, right? Every dollar counts. We just went through that slide just previously talking about partners are strapped for cash. They need things that are going to help grow their business and really help them grow their business, right? And once again, how are we gonna align the go-to-market activities with the go-to-market strategies? And how are we going to do this in a consumerized world, right? In the B2B buyer world, and that's everything that we talked about when we first started here, right? The impact on the B2B marketing tactics, right? The marketer's role and how to help the partners get smarter. And content is king, and context is king. These sort of needs are really driving the digital marketing focus, right? And those activities that are going to deliver that thought leadership. Those activities that are going to be the best vehicles for supporting those for that thought leadership. Which we're going to show this slide for the second time because it's such a great slide. Really goes into those activities that you want to reward and you want to drive and you want to make sure that are successful, right? And that non-straight line that the partner's going through on all that digital marketing, all those pieces are so important. And as you said, I think you said this earlier, Diane, and the focus is so much further up the funnel, and it's new for the partners to need to focus on this, right?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot here, right? We're not in control of the sales process as much as, being a sales guy. I like to be in control of my sales process. Well, the customer is now in control of their own sales process, at least 60 or 80% of their own sales process, where it used to be 10%. They had to talk to me. Right now they can do their own research and find out what they want before they even call us. And the challenge is how do we can continue to have control over your marketing messaging as the customer is more control of the sales process. And I think one of the big challenges that you just mentioned in the key elements slide, the eligible activities, is around keywords, right? Everybody Googles. You Google stuff. And how much are you as a vendor owning your own keywords and making it too expensive for your partners to engage in keyword search? Any of that. So it really, there you go.
Look at that.
I'm a good straight man for you, aren't I?
It's auto-magical. So yeah, I agree with you. So this slide, Diane, and you and I've talked about this. To me, I had to blink a couple times when I first looked at it, And I looked at the column on the left, and by the way, this is a slide that it goes beyond tech. This is from the North America Content Marketing Institute, and it's talking about B2B marketing trends in general. And I really had to do a double take on this one because I wasn't sure at first. I looked at the left side and it said, okay, B2B content marketing tactics usage. And what they're saying here is, based on their survey, B2B marketers in 2017 or 2016 are going to use social media content, case studies, blogs, e-newsletters, and then there's in-person events there too. But that top group is really in the digital marketing side, right? So they're saying this is what we're going to do. But then when you go over to the right and you ask them another question saying what is the most effective rating for a B2B tactic, they've got in-person events at the top. So to me, I had to do a little reading for it to make sense. And what they were saying was, well, it's hard to measure those activities on the upper left-hand side, right? But here's what they said, Diane, and you and I have talked about this as well. If you don't do those top ones from the digital side, nobody's going to show up in your in-person events. So in-person events is great, and when you've got a personal relationship and you can build that rapport and you can get demos and leads and everything that you want out of that. But wow, you better be doing a digital marketing or you're not going to have anybody show up for dinner.
It's really interesting to see content and content on this, right? I mean, social media, case studies, blogs, e-newsletters. Wow, all things that you need to develop content for.
That's a really interesting place to think about, isn't it? We were doing a presentation at a partner conference last summer, and all the partners were out there, and we were having the digital marketing conversation. And the guys from Google actually were up there. They were talking about, or on the panel with me, they were talking about search as well. And so many of the partners were looking for how to. They said the same thing, Diane. They're like, that's a lot of content. You know, how do they make that work? And, you know, we started having conversations about best practices, things that we're seeing, right? And that folks hiring writers to come in and do their blogs, and figuring out how to take the resources from the vendor and take the resources that they had, and then what are their gaps and how they work together to fill them. I think the one commonality across all those partners, Diane, that were sitting in that room, is they all realized this is not what we've normally done.
Right, and then how do the vendors become more flexible in what goes into those marketing activities when a lot of the things that are being successful is content, right? Do you support and pay for a partner to have that writer or that ghostwriter to do content?
Yeah, and so now we're you know, this is it as you're into the activities, right? And you're looking at them. So you can have a partner who traditionally bought golf balls and shirts, right? So now we have to two-partner communicate to them with data that shows why it's worth doing this, that it's much better to take those dollars and invest in someone who can write a blog. Or someone who could just write, period, right? You know, it's the partner's idea or in conjunction with the vendor, but most of these guys either don't have time or don't have someone to do writing. And there's a lot of ghostwriters out there that could really be helpful. I just use that as one example. Okay. So, and this ties into the reimbursement, right? So you've got these activities that you want to drive. What are the tools? What are the carrots and sticks, right? We're talking about the carrots on, okay, here's how you can be successful, and showing ROI and mapping out the MQLs to the SQLs for the partner, and making sure they understand the buyer's journey, and rewarding them for either points-based or more MDF dollars, whatever you want them to do. And now there's the flip side, okay? You as a vendor control the percentage of reimbursement on activities, and it's one of the most used drop downs also in our forums. What do you want to drive? What do you want to discourage? And tying into this digital marketing piece, we're seeing more of an emphasis on the top of the funnel, and taking those activities that you've got and looking at awareness and interest, looking at the top of the pipeline stage, right? I believe you were talking about that earlier, Diane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you're not going to do the in-person events. It doesn't mean, I guess it depends on your products, right? Whether you're selling cloud products or more traditional products. It just means you're going to be more effective at in either of the areas, right? At gaining recognition and gaining MQLs. Okay. So a couple of trends that we see out there. Diane, you and I talked about this the other day too. You know, how happy do you want to make a partner and how far are you willing to go, right? Traditionally, we've seen splits from 50 to 100% by activity. We've seen variations by regions. And for the most part, folks still tend to think that way. But a couple of trends that we're seeing is people are dropping rates for activities that don't contribute really well, like the Chotsky. And, you know, Diane, in some cases, I'm seeing people getting rid of them altogether from their guidelines.
Yeah, yeah, and we're also seeing some flexibility around reimbursing partners that have really good ROI on marketing activities, right? If they are really crushing great marketing activities, maybe you reimburse that partner more rather than just on the activity base.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the interesting pieces here that we've been sorting through the data on this as well, because the trend is absolutely conversation after conversation. We want to move more towards just the right activities, and we want to discourage the wrong activities. And we're not going to do 100% unless it really makes sense. The actual data that we're still seeing out there is the vast majority of vendors still do 100%. If we look at our client list and what they're reimbursing, they're talking about making these moves, but still the vast majority are at 100%. And, you know, so Diane, I called up and I talked to somebody the other day about this. I was like, you know, why at 100% on this when we've had conversations about wanting to move in a different direction? And the response I got was kind of interesting. This individual who's going to definitely remain nameless, said, you know, look, here's the deal. The partner's going to figure out how to get 100% anyways. I was like, well, can you explain that to me? And they said, well, here's the deal. If we make it 50%, they're going to find an invoice somewhere that's going to make it 100%, and they're going to get their money. I said, well, that's kind of a skeptic's view of the world, isn't it? And she said, well, I'm just trying to deal with the reality right now. So I don't know. Do you hear any of that?
We hear that, but of course I never believe it because partners are always honest and straightforward with us as vendors.
Okay. You know, it's a really tough one, right? Because you want to trust and you want to build that relationship, and you want to do the right thing. You know, it's interesting. We've actually had a couple of our vendors come to us and ask us to do audits on the invoices. We do the claims on a regular basis, right? But they've actually asked us to go a step further and dig into the validity of the actual invoices that are being submitted. So there's some push and pull going on out there for sure. But if we take all that out of the picture and we look at it from a high level perspective, I absolutely believe that we have some opportunities to drive these digital behaviors if that's what we really want, and reward accordingly. Okay. And then one in here that's been a conversation lately too is getting away from making it a slush run for the sales folks. But I think that goes back to we were talking about earlier. You know, what are the programs really for, right? And is it for growth, or is it being used as some sort of price adjustment, co-op, whatever, just something to appeal from a sales pricing perspective? Okay. And once again, this rolls, I think, very nicely into the marketing execution, right? And so one of the things you had just said, Diane, was, do the partners always tell us exactly what the full picture is? And that plays into the marketing execution side of things as well. And as partners go out and they're doing their marketing, they're doing their seminars, they're doing whatever they're doing strategically, you know, that data that they're feeding back to us, how valid is that data that they're sending back to us, right? And we're spending this money on these marketing activities, and how are we really judging those, particularly those MQLs, and how are we measuring success? So best practices, and I think, you know, discovery is the key here in determining. Again, when you're looking at this marketing execution, this is coming directly from someone that Diane and I both have worked with in the past. how do we understand what we have, right? And when we're trying to figure out, do we bring in a third party, or what sort of resources do we deliver to these guys? It goes back to determining who you're going to work with and what their capabilities are. And this organization divided into a partner A, a partner B, and a partner C, and they had a self-reliant and support only, a mix of prescriptive and support, and then they had an awful lot of people that were in the all prescriptive side of things. And they went through that exercise before they started looking at the basics, right? Making sure the creative requirements are simple or clean, the tools were easy to facilitate the branding, and then if they're going to bring in a third party, they want to make them really easy to engage, right? And if you tie these together, you get a much better result, I think, from your partner, and so you're able to get a whole lot better validation there. Because the key, I mean, let's face it, Diane, as you brought up in the point about the information the partner gives you, the key is measurement.
Absolutely. ROI, baby.
ROI, baby, right, and realistic, right? And something maybe you don't have to spend 6 or 9 months going back and trying to validate. So one of the trends that we both see an awful lot of is in the through partner marketing side, bringing in those third parties and bringing in those through partner marketing agencies. And we have this conversation with every single client, every single prospect around, how do we integrate? Not only, can we work together with these folks, but, Diane, we're having a conversation now on a regular basis about what does the integration look like so that it's seamless all the way from the beginning of the funnel to the end, right?
Yeah, one pane of glass. If we're really going to talk about the year of the partner and partner experience, then how do we give them the best experience possible, which means that the partner only has one login and then can get to wherever they need to get to without having to remember multiple logins. If we really care about the partner's experience, we've got to do a lot of integration.
Yeah, and and that experience is going to benefit everybody, right? As you said, the partner gets a seamless experience. They get someone who could be executing on their behalf, that's professional, an agency, and someone working with them to get those leads, and then they can go follow up on those leads. So really good for the partners, especially the partners that aren't very good marketers, and really good for, especially if we can integrate, as you say, very good for the vendors, and they can really look at that marketing spend and get valid data back very quickly, at least on the MQL side, right? And then try to tie it to, and then work to tie it through all the way through to the SQL side as well. But definitely get faster and real visibility to true ROI around MQLs here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like I said, the integration piece is key. We at CCI used to have basically three sections, 3 pillars to our platform, and it was channel wisdom, it was software, and services. And that's what our world used to look like. Over the past 2 years, we have an integrations discussion with every single prospect and every single client. You just can't have a discussion about MDF these days without looking at the ecosystem, right? And whether that's the TPMAs that we just talked about for the marketing execution, or the CRM and the PRM side of things, you're right. It's not even just single pane of glass for incentives. It's single pane of glass across the whole partner experience.
And you're about to go into payments as well, I think. Let me just be Karnak here. And with that integration, I think also comes that end-to-end, right? Everything from, did the marketing campaign through deal registrations and payments and closed loop, right? So, the integrations are really important so that you can see as an ROI all the way through that partner's cycle of lead generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things on the, we'll move through it fairly quickly now. We're going to be up against the hour in just a second, but this is pretty simple. Best practices pay quickly. We're focused here on the MDF side of it, and whether it's the cloud or even traditional products, partners want to get paid quickly. We do services for all of our clients and support and partner support and claim auditing, and 99% of the contact from a partner is, where's my check? So industry best practices, and we'll talk about what a check really is in a moment. But industry best practices is 21 days or less into a partner's hand, a reimbursement or a payment. And industry leaders, we've got folks who do batching on a weekly basis, and they're getting to folks in less than 14 days. Okay. Some of the trends around Show Me the Money are not a lot of checks, or moving away from checks, and more ACH and wire transfer, replacing the checks and the bank drafts. People want electronic movement of their dollars, right, or euros, or whatever they may be. And speaking of which, on that side, a big thing about partner-centric versus program-centric. And by the way we define that is a partner-centric program is if a partner requests something in 500 or a claim in 500 euros, no matter what the exchange rate is, when they get the payment gets processed, they get 500 euros. When a program-centric, the partner is exposed to the fluctuation in the exchange rate. So they could request 500 euros, that's what they spent, but look, the exchange rate changes every day. So sometimes they could get a little bit less and sometimes a little bit more. They never complain when they get a little bit more, and they definitely complain when they get a little bit less. Part of this year of the partner side of it is we have seen more people talk about running a partner-centric program. Usually the challenge, to be frank, is with the finance departments. While marketing, sales want to be partner-friendly and partner-centric and say, hey, this is what you spent, this is what you get in these euros, now your finance team has to deal with the fact that they're going to have that fluctuation. And so that's risk, right? And sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. Most of the finance departments we talk to don't like that. So still, I would say in the market, 90% of the top vendors out there are still doing program-centric, but we're having an awful lot of conversations with folks about a partner-centric program.
And I'll also make sure that they get there faster, right? We'll get their money. The finance teams will be getting money out faster if there's more fluctuations in currency.
Yeah.
We'll minimize that time.
That's a great, that's a great point. That's a great selling point to get the finance team to do that. Do weekly batching, and you're gonna have. That's actually a great point, Diane. Dang, that's actually good. All right, so we're going to wrap it up a couple things. One, the closing the loop thing, and that's really I think the integrations were a key part of this, but the way we look at it, you've got the planning that goes on, and then you've got in the blue, and then you've got the execution on the joint marketing planner, MDF, marketing campaigns, and then you got the measurement side. This is what we call a partner investment life cycle, and everything that Diane had been talking about through the whole presentation feeds into this, right? And it's a cumulative effect. The more you go through this with the partner and the more times you go through this, the better it gets. And it's a cumulative effect because if you do a good job planning in the blue, you're going to do a better job in the execution, you get a better measurement on the back end of that. And every time one of these key elements doesn't live up to expectation, your ROI from a partner falls. So in the days of being able to have a conversation about MDF and setting up a tool or platform or program without understanding the integration pieces, the marketing execution pieces, the measurement pieces, the portal, everything all ties together into this ecosystem. Diane, I go into conversations with folks talking about MDF and then drawing a circle on a whiteboard and checking through this box and seeing where people stand.
Yeah, and it has to connect, right? I mean, it is a closed loop process, right? It does go into deal registration, and it does kind of, make the whole loop, end-to-end loop from how much money did they accrue if you're doing co-op, what activities did they spend it on, what, ROI how many leads did they get out of that in terms of ROI, how many lead deals were registered, and then what their sales were. So, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the key, the thing that you and I talk to folks a lot about is these don't have to be silos anymore, right? And it really has gotten to a point. I'm not saying it's easy and you snap your finger and everything falls into place. There's internal challenges people have to face, taking different vendors outside, pulling them all together. But I think just the world is just heading here really, really fast. Actually, I think it's already here. All right, and just to wrap this up, what did the winners do in 2016, year of the partner? I'm a little more skeptical than you are on this. I still think it's a thought that doesn't get as much traction as it could be, but I do think people are talking more and more about it. The behavior modification side of it, we're seeing this in MDF, Diane, and in incentives. It's the top of the funnel on the MDF activities. It's the behavior modification for enablement on incentives that's pre-sales, and even post-sales, right? Because in the cloud world, all those post-sales activities and things you want the partners to do well are gonna help your renewals and gonna help you upsell as well. And then they connect the dots, right? Take that partner lifecycle slide that we just went through. How are people doing that? Even if it's just getting going, maybe they're not API integrations yet, but just starting to share information together. And that all rolls into this single pane of glass, right? Not just for incentives. We definitely expect that there's a single pane of glass for MDF, co-op, spiffs, rebates, but single pane of glass across everything, the marketing execution, deal registration, all of that. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Diane. I really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us this morning. Carrie, do we have any questions? Do we have time for questions?
We have probably time for one or two questions, depending on how fast you talk. Here's one. Do you know the ratio of vendors using Contra versus OpEx for their MDF program?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and so we do. So we go through and we look. We can set up funds for programs or funds to be Contra-driven or to be marketing expense-driven. It really varies across our clients. We actually, it's a great question. We have more finance discussions than we ever did before. We have some fantastic data on Contra versus OpEx. And how to look at even some of those gray areas that may be there. And we've categorized all the key activities and where they fall out. And we've just got a really nice deck on that and be more than glad to share with that. As far as how vendors look at it, Diane, I'm not sure what you're seeing, but we have it all over the board. We have some vendors that are very, very conservative and they classify so much as Contra, even if technically they perhaps something should be a marketing expense. They're being ultra conservative and they're classifying everything as Contra. And then we have some folks that are more aggressive and they're more in a marketing expense. And when we have lists, and there are clearly some activities that fall under Contra, and there's clearly some ones that fall under marketing expense. And then the context of which something like I'll use a training as an example, could shift it one way or the other. So, sorry, there's not a quick answer on that, but we have some great data points on that. Really nice deck, and glad to share.
How about one more question? We're just getting started working with a TPMA. Can you connect us with some of your clients that have been successful?
Okay, Diane, I'll take that real fast on my end, and I'll shift it over to you. Yes, so we have clients who have had seamless experiences, and we have clients who have gone through the bumps of what to do. And one of the biggest things that I think any of the through partner marketing automation companies or agencies will tell you is if you build it and they will come, you got to do more than that, right? There is the two-partner communication. There is the incentives that go around there. And as a matter of fact, we have someone really good who's writing a newsletter for us next month. A guy named Mike Gallagher from HPE, who is actually writing a newsletter for us on his whole experience. And it worked out really well for him, but he can talk about all the stages and everything they went through on that. So we have other folks as well.
Diane, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that was great around, I think this is the question around who are the TCMA guys, and Stephen, I'd leave it to you to do some introductions there with your customers around who's using whom for TCMA.
Okay.
We've got a lot of partnerships there as well, but and have some really, I think the big thing is around integration, as you mentioned. Make sure that they have experience with integrations and plan on that single pane of glass and look and feel integration data path all the way through.
So yeah, either one of us, I think, have We might even agree on some of this stuff, Diane.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. All right. Hey, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. We ran a couple minutes over, but we covered an awful lot of ground, and either one of us is glad to go into more details on this. So once again, thank you very much. Diane, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.